Hello and welcome to Neuroshambles, the podcast that aims to shine a light into some of the murkier corners of what it's like to parent neurodivergent kids. I'm Mark Allen, and every episode I'm going to be swapping stories with my guests about some of the frankly ludicrous nonsense we have to deal with on a daily basis. So, if you're anything like me and you're feeling frazzled, overwhelmed and pretty much an outcast from polite society, join me. Hello and welcome to episode 7 of Neuroshambles. Hope you all had a good Christmas. Obviously, the definition of what good constitutes is flexible in our world, but nevertheless, hope you managed to get through it all okay. Now, we have got a cracking episode coming up for you. I'm very excited to introduce a special guest for this show. We're also going to be looking at neurodiversity champions, what the flip coming up. Also, we've got some tiny epic wins, and I'm going to be speaking to our very special guest about the subject of honesty, something that you may or may not have felt yourself challenged by this Christmas when asked particularly difficult questions about the provenance of Santa, maybe. Either way, what I should do is stop prattling and crack on with the show. So here it is.
Meet the guest.
So I am very excited to introduce our guest for episode 7 of Neuroshambles. So this is someone who came to my attention when someone said, this book's come out and it's amazing and it totally says everything that I want to read, but not in a boring way. And it was and it was Your Child Is Not Broken by Heidi Mavir. And I am delighted to welcome Heidi onto the show. Heidi, welcome.
Hiya, thanks for having me.
You're more than welcome. So this is your book. This is the one that I read. Your Child Is Not Broken. You can see there's a coffee ring on it, so that shows you it's very well used.
Nice.
It's useful not only to kind of help parents of neurodivergent kids navigate their world without losing their brains, but also if your children are the type of children that throw coasters across the room and you don't have one to hand.
Multifunctional.
It's very absorbent. So it's something for everyone. So not only is Heidi an author, Heidi is also a public speaker and set up EOTAS Matters, which is fantastic. EOTAS, if you're not familiar with the phrase, is Heidi.
EOTAS, is an abbreviation for education otherwise than at school. So it's something that's made possible for children and young people through the EHCP process in England, whereby if it's inappropriate for a child or a young person to be educated in a school or college setting, you can use this piece of legislation to get them a bespoke package of education to learn away from an educational setting, which a lot of our kids need at some point during their careers, particularly if they're autistic or PDA. So that's the work that I do, supporting parents and carers to navigate that system.
Which is wonderful, because Tam is actually an EOTAS tutor.
Nice.
So Tam goes into kids' homes and tutors them in science.
Brilliant.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic, and they're getting a lot out of it, and the kids are getting a lot out of it. So hugely appreciative of everything that EOTAS kind of represents, really. So before we kind of start on our topic of the week, obviously it's important for us to have an understanding of your particular setup.
My God, how long have you got? Okay, so we're all the isms, all the icks in our house.
Okay.
So my son Theo is now 19, but he crashed out of school when he was 15, and we then were on that like roller coaster of working out what that was all about. So since then, he has been diagnosed autistic and ADHD. He has a tic disorder.
Right. Since
then. We didn't know.
Okay.
We thought he was one of the normals. We thought I was too.
Wow.
Oh, the hilarity, how we laughed.
I know, I've given up second guessing anything anymore.
So since then, he's been diagnosed autistic ADHD. I have too. He also has a tic disorder. He has hypermobility, probably Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. He has dyspraxia, dyslexia, all the ears. He's a little bundle of fiery, spiky brain. And the reason we didn't clock it before was because I am too. So yeah, that's where we're at.
Wow. Okay. Your neuroshambolic household must be an absolute joy to navigate.
It's a fucking shambles, Mark. It's a shambles. I mean, it's nice now that we know why. Like, it's all my
I
house
think
has
that's
always
it, isn't
been
it?
chaos and an absolute shambles, but now I get to blame it on something other than just being a useless human.
It's not just blame though, isn't it? I guess that you also sort of learn strategies because, like, oh, that's what my brain's
Yeah.
doing, or that's how they're perceiving this situation. So let's change the way that this situation is handled,
Yeah.
as opposed to, well, I mean, from my point of view, I am undiagnosed neurotypical. So I bang myself up against this all the time. And go, oh, I'm wrong in this household because everyone else, to be honest, is seeing things in a different point of view. So I've got to navigate things differently. So
You're the odd one out.
I am. There is a Chinese saying: 99 monkeys without noses laugh at the monkey with a nose,
Mhm.
and that's basically how it feels in my house.
That you're a monkey with a nose.
I'm the monkey with a nose being laughed at by all the noseless monkeys.
Yeah. Yeah, and who's to say that monkeys need noses anyway? Like,
Exactly. Exactly. Smelling's overrated. That is a different episode.
What's the topic of the week?
So, the topic of this week is the subject of honesty. Because I think one of the very best things about my autistic kids, and I guess with a lot of autistic kids in general, is that they can be steadfastly and unflinchingly honest, which is not always welcome. But I think it's a laudable trait in these times where it seems that truth and honesty is bewilderingly kind of expendable. So what I like the fact that my kids can be honest, but that also is slightly mortifying in social situations. Let's say, is that something that you kind of had with Theo?
you say slightly mortifying, utterly horrifying, deeply embarrassing,
Yes, yes.
and just like proper world open me up and swallow me whole situations. Yes. More so when he was younger, I think. I think he's a little bit older now, and he and I had a conversation about it this morning, actually, and about honesty. And I realized that he has a much more nuanced relationship with honesty than he used to. But when he was
Okay.
young, oh my God, like completely unfiltered, brutal honesty in almost every situation and interaction with any other human being, including me. Um,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, especially the parents. I think I don't know. Maybe that is just because we feel a bit safer. I mean, we'll get onto some of the things that Jade has leveled at me
Hmm.
in terms of honesty. But so I'm quite interested to hear that Theo's got a more nuanced take on it now, because Theo's 19, right?
He's 19, yeah.
So I'm sort of looking to that and going, oh, maybe my children's relationship with honesty will evolve over time, because at the moment it is they are unflinchingly honest, and partly it's there's an aversion to lying there.
Yeah.
I think they don't like uh other people lying, because I guess it's confusing. Say what you mean, right?
100%. And I think there's that also that massive sense of justice that we have in
Yes.
neurodivergent people in general, but particularly kids and young people, whereby there's a need for truth and honesty because maybe the nuance of social interactions are a little bit more complicated for us. And so we rely on people being honest to be able to work out what's going on. And so I
Yes.
think that being lied to or things not being truthful is a danger to us because it puts us in a position of disadvantage because we can't or are unable to or don't have the skills to or just don't operate on the level of having to unpick other people's bullshit all the time.
That's a very good way of putting it. Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's a huge like attachment to honesty in neurodivergent kids especially.
Yes, a reliance on it, I
Yeah.
guess.
And I don't think it's wrong either. I think like I don't disagree.
No, not at all. And there's so many sort of unwritten social rules though that rely on a kind of a flexibility around truth, I guess, and
Mm.
and honesty. So last year we went to see My Neighbor Totoro, the stage show in London last year. It was
Mhm.
fantastic. He's really into Studio Ghibli and that kind of thing. It's one of his special interests. So we got to it's at the Barbican, and I wanted to get to the Barbican early. I don't know if you know the Barbican,
Mhm.
but it is just like a I mean, for a kid with ADHD, it's like a wonderland. It's on loads of different
It's a
levels. There's
rabbit
loads of
warren, isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So I was like, you know what? Let's get there early. It was a relaxed performance, so I'm not going to be judged by other people because I'm sure there'll be other similar kids there. So I wanted to get there early, and he could, and then we're not going to be late, and he's just going to enjoy the Barbican before the show, and also expend some of the energy that he's got. And we get to the Barbican, and I come out, and I'm greeted by someone who wants to get me to sign up to his charity. Right, so
Right.
he's got his clipboard, and it's something to do with water. I'm not like I'm sure it's really important in the scheme of the world. It is definitely worthy, and you're doing a fantastic job. But right now I've got some one-on-one time with my kid out of the house doing something he wants to do. This is golden time for me.
Yeah.
It is not a time for me to stop and talk to you about your charity. I'm sorry. So I tried to get rid of him by just going, sorry, it's not a good time. It's his first time in London, and we're going to explore. And he just stopped. He went, hang on, daddy, this is not my first time in London. I've been in London loads of times. I was like, oh, what? And the guy sort of, he looked at me and went, oh, so he's telling fibs, is he?
And then you look like an absolute maniac.
I know,
Why would you
I
lie
know,
about your child never having been to London
I
before?
know, exactly. And now it looks like I've abducted him or something.
We live in London, Daddy.
Exactly. so, so I mean, I'm not going to say like, sorry, mate, but my kid is autistic with a heavy dose of ADHD.
Yeah.
Your charity might be the most worthy cause in the world at the moment, but if I start talking to you in any detail, he's going to be flapping and spinning and fidgeting in the entrance of this busy tube station, and none of us need that. Can I just go about my business?
Yeah.
That is probably what I should have said.
Well, you also, that thing about like the honest answer would have been, I'm sorry, mate, I just don't want to talk to you. But you're not allowed to
I
do
know,
that, are you?
but I am crippled with neurotypicality.
Yeah.
Like I have to, yeah, I can't hurt his feelings. I mean, not that it would, because he must get all kinds of
Of
stuff, right?
course. Of course. Like that
It's
that requirement to be to stay in social safety with other people and to not put yourself in a position where you potentially could be considered rude or ostracized or at the very worst, like in terms of like a pack animal mentality, if you don't fit in, you get ejected, right? So
absolutely,
it's a
yeah,
threat to
yeah,
life. So you have to learn to assimilate, otherwise you're going to no one wants to be alone, and that's potentially the risk. So yeah, it makes total sense. But it's
it
so
does,
funny
but
that
not.
him saying I've been to London many times. I've done with a charity on the street thing before, and at the
Yeah,
front door. I've done the whole oh no, I actually already give, and he's
okay, yeah.
corrected me before. No, you don't.
She's not charitable.
We're far too broke to give to charity, Mum.
That's the honest answer. Let's.
You don't
Yeah.
prioritize other people's suffering. What are you talking about?
You're dealing with your own suffering, mummy.
Yeah. We don't care about other people. We have no empathy. What are you talking about?
Yeah, and it is like I get he doesn't understand the nuance of why I'm saying what I'm saying at the time, and maybe that's a lesson for me to just be a bit more honest up front, and
I think there's like I've learned a lot about my relationship with honesty through parenting Theo. Like I write
okay.
about it in the book. As a child, I was like a award-winning liar.
Oh, really?
Like it was part of my masking. It was part
Yeah,
of
of course,
my
of course.
hiding my neurotype, was that I just assimilated so much that I just was hardly ever truthful about anything. So I guess it goes the other way, doesn't it? Like as an unrecognized, undiagnosed autistic child, the only way to get by was to lie my socks off.
I've never thought about that. That's a
Wi-
really interesting take
yeah.
on the fact that neurodivergent kids don't are averse to lying, but mask
Yeah.
or to
But
get
then the
by.
difference is I don't think that we definitely don't know we're masking. It's a survival
No.
technique, and it's not
Hmm.
intentional, and it's not dishonest. It's a coping strategy, and it's a survival
Yes.
technique, which
Yes.
I think probably is why, because we have to do that, we just require a level of honesty from other people in order to just get by, especially people who we trust. And I think that's why our children especially find it particularly difficult when they see us not being honest, either with them or with other people, because it shakes their foundations. It kind of like
Yes.
it challenges what they think about the world. And I guess, one of the things that people say about autistic people all the time is that kind of like that black and white thinking. And, either something is true or it's not true. And so I think for a lot of our kids, as they're learning that is not necessarily the case, and that does evolve, I think, as they get older. But part of it's either true or it isn't true requires to know whether someone is being truthful or not being truthful. Otherwise, you're stuffed, right?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah, I think that it
Oh,
makes total sense. It makes total sense. And,
I can't. Yeah, now made me feel horrible for shaking Jay's foundations.
it's all part of the learning to manage in a world not built for us, right? So, there is a requirement if we're going to manage in as a minority to understand what the majority rules are.
Yeah.
And one of the majority rules is sometimes you lie.
Yes, but there are different reasons for doing so.
Yes.
And that's where the nuance is, right? I mean, that's where you sort of, so for example, you sometimes, little white lies are actually kind of part of the sort of oil that helps social communication. Sometimes it's that
Yeah.
you need to sometimes lie in order to spare people's feelings, and that is not
100%.
something that my kids are on board with at all. If you've ever listened to this podcast, you will realize that Jay is particularly forthright in not sparing my feelings. Um, so, like,
It is a daft rule though, isn't it?
it,
It's a daft
it
rule
is.
that in order to fit in we have to be
It's not.
dishonest.
Yeah, this is something I spoke to another guest of ours, Liam Malone. When I was having a conversation with him about it, and he was saying that he hates the word respect, as in show me
Mhm.
respect, because it doesn't mean anything. Be respectful means nothing to him. He was like,
Means
what is
absolutely
that?
nothing.
That's a vague word. And if you were actually being truthful about what that is, what you're saying is you don't want me to tell the truth because you want me to spare your feelings. If
Mhm.
and that's what it is. And I was like, I've never thought about it like that. So Liam is neurodivergent as well. It was really interesting to kind of have that conversation about these woolly terms, I guess.
Mhm. I have a similar relationship with the word inappropriate.
Okay,
Like
yes,
I hate it when people say that's inappropriate.
yes, absolutely,
According to whom?
yeah,
Uh, uh, what would appropriate be? Who says?
yes, yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
your rules for what is appropriate just make no sense to
Oh,
me.
I went to look at secondary schools for Jay, and one school I went into, he was trying to sort of explain how inclusive they were as a school. And he went, because,
Mhm.
some kids here find it easy to behave well, and some find it more difficult to behave well. I'm like, there's no fucking way I'm bringing my child to this school."
Get your
Like,
coat. We're out of here.
exactly. Like, difficult to behave well. What do you mean by well? Behave what? Who's setting the boundaries of what well is?
Yeah.
Oh,
Cut to you and Jay running from the
that's
building.
literally it. Exactly. The whole thing about sparing people's feelings and little white lies is so alien to people who don't really have empathy, I guess, is part of that as well, of not really understanding how their words can affect other people. So therefore, why should
Yeah.
they not be honest?
I think the thing as well, I was talking to Theo about empathy this morning because I think actually the notion that autistic people don't have empathy is a massive, massive
It is.
lie.
No, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Like, it's not true. Um, but actually, I think it's a scale. So Theo was saying this morning, in terms of the definition of empathy, I do not know how someone else is feeling. And I think it's actually dishonest to say that anyone would ever know how someone else is feeling. How could you? So the notion of empathy in and of itself is flawed because how would you ever know how someone else is feeling? And I was like, oh,
It is interesting. The concept of emotional intelligence kind of comes into it, isn't it? I guess, in that you're sort of
mm,
picking up on what other people are putting out in terms of uh, non-verbal communication. So you're talking to
yeah,
someone and you can see they're tensing up, and if you are, if you're kind of open to that sort of those non-verbal signs, then you can go, what I'm saying right now is not going down well. I might just back up on criticizing their shoes or something.
yeah,
um
yeah.
and so whereas it was my kids don't have that. So Jay, for example, once I made the mistake of asking him how I looked. And he went, "You look okay. It's just your trousers and your face I don't like." It's like,
Theo once said to me, I said, "Does this dress make my boobs look big?" And he said, "No, your massive boobs make your boobs look big. The dress is fine." Fair enough. Like, it's not a magic dress, Mum.
I mean, I've learned to just not ask the questions now.
Yeah,
Basically,
don't ask if you don't want the answer. That's,
exactly
yeah,
right.
yeah,
And
$100%.
there are other ones where, like, and this sort of ties in with small talk as well, because I've got a theory that that like my kids are not very good at small talk. They don't get it, and I think that's not an unfamiliar kind of trait
Oh,
of
it's
a
such a
lot of
waste of time.
autistics. It's a waste of time because, and again, it's all part of that sort of in unwritten social
Social
lubrication, if you like.
niceties,
Yes,
yeah.
exactly. Uh, and but if you think about it, small talk is fundamentally dishonest in that you
Hmm.
would say, I would say, "Oh, how was your day?" to someone. I don't actually want to know how their day was.
Not at all.
I'm just, it's just me just going, "Hey, as a human, I'm reaching out to you to pretend that I care." And then you will go, "Fine, thanks. How was yours?" And I'll say, "Fine." And then it's like, "Okay, now we've got that bit over with. Let's get down to business." Um, and
But
I
let's
find my,
let's talk about the weather on the way there, obviously. Like, do
exactly. We
yeah.
can both
Mhm.
see what the weather's doing. We don't need to discuss it. Um,
Or
and
how close it is to Christmas, or
there's so many,
yeah.
but it serves a function for neurotypicals, a sense of connection, I guess. I don't know. I can't explain it.
It's a social
Um,
oil, isn't it? And I think
yes.
one of the things with small talk is that it gives you time to read another person's nonverbal skill communication.
Hmm.
So small talk gives you a period of safety where you can work out if a person is going to be your kind of person or not, based on all those nonverbal cues and all that other stuff, that energy and all of that. That it basically is just thinking time for, is this person a twat or not?
We just asked that question at the outset.
Yeah. Whereas autistic people are just like, are you going to be interested in me talking about, uh, whatever it might be that is my passion or my hobby? If you're not, then I'm not interested in talking to you. So let's just, or do we have some shared ground we can find? Like my friend Christy Forbes always says, autistic people make connection by talking about their shared trauma. It's
Yes.
like, cut
Okay.
the bullshit. Let's just talk about how terrible our lives are. And then that'll be our common ground.
Yes.
Um, you know,
Instead of something so broad as, the weather or the time of year.
if
I
we've
get,
both been
yeah.
to the same place on holiday or whatever it might be. And I think the small talk thing is, like you were saying, it is fundamentally dishonest because it doesn't tell you anything about the other person. In real terms, it gives you time if you have the skills to read nonverbal communication. But if you don't
Yes.
have the skills in reading nonverbal communication, why would you waste your time? Just get
Yeah,
to the stuff.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
I find myself sometimes doing it with my kids and regretting it immediately. And I kick myself for doing it every time. But like when I pick them up from school, and I go, "How was school?" That's because Otto will tell me in extreme detail about a game of football that he played at lunchtime and what goals he scored and what goals other people scored. And it's like, I don't actually want to know. Sorry, I shouldn't have opened this can of worms. I'm just trying to get you in the car to get home because I've got to get back to work. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and similarly with Jay, he will tell me in again in extreme detail, but about all the shit he's had to endure that day. And again, I'm really glad that he's open to talking to me about that, but it's not the time or the place. So I need to. I mean, Tam and I have had a conversation about just that's a question that we're not going to ask now. We don't ask how was school because at the time that we ask it is not appropriate. Speaking of what's
Yeah.
inappropriate and what's appropriate,
Yeah.
but it isn't for our situation.
Yeah.
What's much better is to take some time when they're a bit more regulated and it's just me and them, and then go, then I can say to Otto, "Tell me about the goal you scored today." And it's a much more kind of directed conversation and it's much more meaningful to him, or similarly
Because
to
you can
Jay,
give him back what he needs while he's sharing that stuff, rather than the
exactly.
alternative, which is that you just learn to zone out and make listening
Yes,
noises, which I
yes,
think
which
lots of
is,
us do with our
I
kids,
know, I know.
regardless of
uh,
their neurotype. Probably as a survival mechanism,
but it is, yeah.
from your brain exploding from hearing the same story for the millionth time. He was saying to me this morning, we were talking about it in the car, and he said, he used this lovely term, which I mentioned to you, which was lies of convenience, where he said to me, sometimes someone will say to me, have you watched this film? And I'll just say yes, because I just think, well, no, I haven't. I'm not gonna, and I don't really want to hear about it. So if I say yes, then they can just get it out of their system and tell me what they want to tell me about it. They'll probably tell me what their favorite part is. I just agree that it's my favorite part too, and then we can move on.
Yes, yes, I like that. A
And
lie
I'm
of
like,
convenience.
yeah, I'm like, that works. Why would you want to be stuck in a conversation about a film you have no intention of watching and you have no interest in? It's like,
Yes,
I mean, I get that some people would be like, well, he might learn something from this other film. He's very particular in the kind of films he watches, and he will know exactly whether he'll want to watch it or not. And you can guarantee that whatever film you recommend to him, he will know whether it's his kind of film or not. He's very filmy, very TV-ish.
yes,
So when someone says, have you seen a film he has no interest in seeing? He'll just say, yeah, because it's a shortcut. Because
yeah,
then he
exactly.
knows that he can get on to talking about something he does want to talk about. And he said to me this morning, the thing is, Mum, they feel good because they feel like we've made a connection and I've won some points in passing as a normal. And then we can have a conversation about something I really want to speak about. And then they can really get to know me. So everyone wins. And I'm like, makes sense, mate. Fair
It does.
enough.
He's got the answers. That's
Lies of
it.
convenience.
So, I mean, that was one of the things I was kind of quite interested in as well. For neurodivergent kids who don't like lying, it makes them feel uncomfortable. I know that mine
Hmm.
do generally. They do try and lie. I mean, mine certainly do, and it sounds like Theo's got it nailed, which is
I
good.
mean,
I was
he
like,
hasn't. I can tell.
oh, really? Does he try it on
He
then?
thinks I can't tell, but I can tell. Like,
So,
he's
what are
got
the
some massive tells.
what are his tells?
One of his tells when he's lying is that he makes eye contact.
That happens with Otto as well. Yeah, I
And
know.
you're like, oh, eye contact. We don't do that in this house. What's going on?
Yeah, that's definitely an Otto thing as well. Like when he looks at me, because he's really like wide-eyed as well, because it's not natural
Really intense and
either.
really
Yeah,
like,
and he
no,
raises his
really.
eyebrows.
But also, I mean, he doesn't. I said to him this morning, you don't really lie, do you? And he was like, yeah, I do. I was like, oh, okay. I was kind of a bit touched that he was able to do that. I was a bit like, oh, go you. Look at you
Oh,
operating in a dishonest world. I'm so proud, you little fibber.
maybe that was
But
a lie.
I mean, but he I can tell when he's not being honest. But
Yes.
but it rarely happens, to be honest, because he is generally very honest. He I think he has got, and I think this is something that as a younger child, he didn't have this nuance. And now he's an adult and he's learned a lot more about, his own neurotype, which is really helpful, and other people's communication styles and all of that stuff. He does know about lies of convenience and he's worked out a way to make that work for himself. But when he was younger, like, it was so obvious. And he would lie about things that were so obviously massive fibs. He told me this morning, oh, do you remember when the router stopped working? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, and I said I didn't know what it was. And I was like, yeah. He goes, yeah, I spilled a cup of soup on it.
Oh,
And I was like, you did not. He was like, yeah, I think that was my first lie.
really? Oh man, he can trace back his
And I
Fisher
was
Price, my
like,
first lie.
wow. His first intentional, I'm going to be dishonest about this because I've learned that sometimes that's the way to do it.
But was it a
You know,
lie? As in, you said, "Do you know what's happened to the router?" Or was it, "Did you spill this cup of soup on a router?"
there wasn't evidence of cup of soup
Okay, okay.
spillage. So he'd amazingly
Because there's
made some
only you
kind
two
of,
in the house, so it's
yeah, he'd amazingly had some kind of revelation whereby he learned for that 30 seconds how to clean up after himself, only for that 30 seconds. But yeah, I was like, what's wrong with the router? He's like, I don't know, Mum, it's just stopped working.
and
And
he
I was
didn't
like,
make
oh
eye
my
contact.
God.
You're like, okay, this passes.
Yeah. Like, it was convincing. And I didn't know until this morning that's what happened.
Yeah. So I think that there are. Yes, I don't think it's fair to say that neurodivergents don't lie. Like Jade, for example, will lie if it directly benefits himself, but it's
Sure.
usually very easy to disprove. It's
Yeah.
normally he'll go, "Oh yeah, Mummy said I could have some more screen time." It's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, Mummy's in the next room, so shall I just ask them? Okay.
Or he'll
Um,
say to me, "You promised." And I'll be like, "I don't think I did." "Yeah, no, you did. You promised." I'd be like, "No, no, I'm sure I didn't." "Yeah, you did. You definitely promised." And I now have to be like, because he'll sometimes catch me. He'll be like, "Do you promise?" I'll be like, "Yeah, yeah, I promise." I'm like, "Fuck, I've promised now."
no. No, yeah, I know. I do that
So I
sometimes
have
as
to really
well.
catch myself and not promise things, because then I'm able to say to him, "I did not promise." Like, that's not true.
I mean, Otto is well, both of them actually crumble quite easily when they're confronted with a lie as well.
When they're caught in a lie.
Yeah, when they're caught
Mhm.
in a lie, it's just like, yeah, yeah. I mean, Jay sometimes tells me just because he wants to show that he'd managed to lie and he was being clever. Otto is takes literally just the raise of an eyebrow and he'll crumble.
Yeah.
So he'll try something and I'll say, uh, "Were you watching YouTube in your room when I said you couldn't?" And he'll go, "No, Daddy." And then I'll raise an eyebrow and he went, "Okay, yeah, yeah, I was. I was. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to."
Busted.
Exactly. He'd be like the worst under interrogation. He would crumble so easily. If he was in a police interrogation, he'd be giving names and dates and fucking shoe sizes, anything. He's singing like a canary.
Yeah. I think as well, unknowingly, or maybe knowingly, I don't know, whatever it was, um, when he was younger, I hammered home to him the importance of honesty.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
you will get in more trouble for lying and being caught than for just being honest.
Yes.
And so, for me, him being as honest as the day is long was not a massive surprise to me, because I trained him into it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but
So,
yeah, and by all means, take the credit.
oh yeah, no,
But
absolutely. It's my expert parenting. He's not actually autistic. It's just that I'm a really excellent mum.
exactly, you just focus on that one thing and
Yeah,
absolutely fucking smashed it.
yeah,
Well done.
totally. Boxed off. Yes.
Um, I mean, I think that's I think that's kind of true of all parents saying to their kids not to lie, but it is one thing that seems to stick with the autistic community. I
Yeah.
mean, India suspected neurotypical that is slightly wavering day by day at the moment, um, but but. Uh, India definitely presents the most neurotypically. I think I can definitely say that in our household. Um, and she's quite a good liar. She won't
Is
crumble
she?
under interrogation at all. She'll double down,
Yeah.
which is worrying. I'll be honest. I prefer the other way.
I mean,
But
she's probably got a bright future ahead of her in either acting or politics.
because there's one thing being honest, and there's another thing knowing when to not be honest. I think when to
Mm.
actually not say anything. And Otto doesn't have that off switch. So I've been in situations where he's just because he just talks so much, and he
Is
tends
he
to narrate.
ADHD as well? Is he
Yeah, yeah,
autistic
yeah, 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 yeah.
ADHD? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, they are both autistic ADHD,
yeah,
and ADHD presents more acutely in certain situations. Um,
yeah.
and he's getting into tennis, right? And it's like, brilliant, you've got an interest, let's go, let's do something outdoors with other people. And so I take him to tennis once a week, and he plays with a mixture of different kids, all like they're 8, so they're just hitting the ball backwards and forwards, and some are better at it than others. But Otto narrates it all the time, and when he gets paired with this specific kid, he is brutal. Because he doesn't keep it in, right? So he's playing, and then he's going, "Oh, that was a terrible shot. That was miles out." He's saying it to this kid who's just like spammed it into the net or something like that. Um,
He's down the other end of the court going, "What a load of shit!"
yeah, yeah, basically, but also really loudly. So not only can
Bless
this other
him.
kid hear it, but his dad can hear it, and I'm stood next to his dad.
Yeah,
and
painful.
and it is like, and after about 10 minutes of Otto berating this other kid for not being very good, and to be fair, he does it to himself as well. He does it when he does a bad shot, but has no filter, so he just lets it
Yeah.
out. And after about 10 minutes of this, the dad turned to me and he went, "He's very expressive, isn't he?" Like,
Expressive.
yeah, and I didn't really know what to go. So, yeah, I'm sorry. And I think at that point, I was like, yeah, he is autistic, so he doesn't really have a filter.
You're welcome. Also, your
Yeah,
kid's
yeah.
shit at
He
tennis.
needs to know, though. Let's face it. This kid has not got a career in this. Come on.
Have you considered football?
So another thing I wanted to look at is the positive side of not lying.
Mm,
Because that's definitely, it is an admirable quality in neurodivergent kids. Is I can genuinely rely on my kids to tell me the truth in a situation. So
yep.
if Jay and Otto are playing in a room and Otto starts crying, this happens a lot, basically, uh, because he's very susceptible to pain, and Jay is very impervious to boundaries. I guess
That
is
was
the
me and my
charitable.
brother. My brother's like used to beat seven shades of shit out of him,
No,
bless him.
but he doesn't see. Yeah, he doesn't. He's not actually trying to properly damage him. He's just a bit rougher than he needs to be, I think.
Yeah,
Um, but there are times where I'll go in and I will say, "Okay, Jay, tell me what happened," and and I know that what's going to come out of his mouth is actually what happened. He's not going to
yeah.
lie to me. So I'll say, "What happened, Jay?" And he would go, "Otto was annoying me. I told him not to. He carried on, so I kicked him in the stomach." It's like, okay,
Fair
well,
play.
okay. So, do you know what I mean? You're not just saying nothing. You're telling me what happened. I know that this is the truth. And at least I know how to navigate this situation now. Um,
Hmm.
but he also does genuinely seem surprised that I'm then taking Otto's side in this situation,
Hmm.
which is
Yeah.
frustrating. It's like, I think he half expects me to go, oh, that's fair play then. Why not? Carry
Yeah.
on. But at least I know that.
One of the benefits of having a young person who is not in the lying game, unless it's, a lie of convenience to save everyone's feelings, is that, and we've had a hell of a battle getting what he needs in terms of
Yeah.
accommodations in
Mhm.
school and what have you. Wrote a book, don't know if you know about it. But one of the things that's been a real, like, something I can kind of like pin stuff on is I know he doesn't lie about stuff.
Yeah.
So when they say things that, he'll come home and when he was really struggling in school, he'd come home and he'd say, they shouted at me and they made me look stupid in front of everyone in the class. Um, and then I'd go back, and school would say there was an incident and this happened and that happened. And I'd be like, well, look, Theo is a lot of things, but he rarely, if ever, lies. And he's told me this is what happened. And but the challenge in that, I was able to, when he was telling me what he was experiencing,
Yeah.
there was something about I know that that was his truth. Now,
Yes.
maybe other people might not have read it the same way. Maybe that teacher didn't think they were shouting in his face and making him look and feel stupid, because we do know that different people's perceptions of these things, especially neurotypical kids, can
Hmm.
be very different. So Theo has for sure picks up on people's frustrations, and it feels to him like he's being shouted at or people are raising their voices when perhaps they're not, but he's picking up on their frustration. He is actually reading nonverbal cues,
Hmm.
but he interprets that as being shouted at. But I
Yes.
was able to, knowing that that was his genuine experience, I was able to say to people, look, you may not see that this way, but how he experiences it is X, Y, and Z. And that's what you're going to have to make accommodations for.
Yes, and he's being honest
So
about how he experiences it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So there is that kind of like, I mean, sometimes there have been situations where he's been truthful and someone else has been absolutely dishonest, and I've been able to go, he doesn't lie, therefore you're lying. But then there is also something about, because I know that he is honest with me about what is going on for him, I can, in firm confidence, say to people, this is his experience. And I know that I'm advocating for him honestly and truthfully. And that's valuable. There's a
Yeah,
real
absolutely.
plus
Hmm.
point with that. And one of the things I think that's the biggest challenges for parents of kids who maybe are unwell or in burnout or experiencing high levels of masking or whatever is that sometimes you're the only person that child is honest with about their experiences, and that is really difficult.
Yeah.
um when you're getting from everyone else, but they seem fine or they've never shown me that or whatever it might be. But I think there is an absolute bonus of the positives of not lying, is that you can trust that what your kid is telling you is happening, is their experience, is honest, it's their account.
Yeah.
And also, like, he's freaking hilarious. He says, never ceases to have me in absolute stitches just with his beautiful honesty about things.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah. I mean,
just,
I've actually wheeled my children out before to be honest with people who need it. like
yeah.
my mate was like, I'm not sure about. I think he was having a bit of a crisis of confidence about his hair because he got grey in his hair, and he was like, I don't know if my hair's kind of grey now. My kids say that it's sort of light brown, but I think it's grey. I was like, let me bring out the big guns to establish this.
Here's my
So
human lie detector.
I wheeled out Otto and Jay. They went, yeah, it's grey with bits of brown. It's like, right, case closed. What next? Thanks,
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah.
I should rent them out. Actually, that'd be really.
Like, cause like more like they could be like bullshit monitors, couldn't they? They're
Yeah,
like more effective than a polygraph.
I think
Yep, lying.
fashion consultants. Basically,
And that's
how
the
do I
funny
look?
thing is, yeah, that's the funny thing is that although our kids are accused of not having social skills, they are really good bullshit monitors.
Yeah,
Like they can
exactly.
see it from 100 miles away, and they know when the people are trying to trick them. They might not be able to articulate it always, or they might not even be able to put their finger on it. But generally speaking, if my kid goes, that person gives me the ick, it's usually a good indication that that person's a bit icky.
There's a difference between honesty and brutal honesty. And
Yeah.
very often I'm on the receiving end of brutal honesty. So, and Jay in particular is incredible at this. So I get some things like Jay once just went, your breath smells, Daddy. No wonder you wear so much aftershave. It's like, fucking hell, dude. Just brutal.
He said to me before, are you going to have a bath? You smell of vomit.
It's like,
Yeah, I'll get right on that. Thanks, mate.
the answer to that question is yes, I'm going to have a bath, but you could have maybe done something a bit more tactful.
Yeah.
So in terms of brutal honesty, I can definitely rely on Jay to be brutally honest. And one of my quite a significant moment in my life was when I was driving along and all the kids were in the car, and there was me and Tam and Otto and India and Jay in the car, and he's looking out the window and he was thinking about something for a while, and then he turned to me and went, Daddy, you used to be a stand-up comedian, but now you're just a boring data guy. And I was like, I nearly had to pull over. It was like,
Ouch.
exactly. Like I think everyone has this little kernel of something, there's some self-awareness in their soul that they're aware of, and they kind of cover up and they hope that no one notices. And he'd looked into my very soul and he pulled it out and he held it out in front of me and the whole family, and everyone laughed. And it was brutal. And I, I think if you try and find the origin story of this podcast, uh, you can probably trace it back to that very moment in the car where I'm like, I'm not just a boring data guy now. I am the number 124th ranked podcast in Hungary for parenting. So there. Uh, yeah, so it's brutal. It's brutal.
You've reminded me of something then when you were saying, oh, he said something to me pretty heartbreaking, actually. And he was being honest. And
Yeah.
he said to me, when he was getting ready to turn 18, say getting ready to, it was happening, whether he wanted it to or not. He wasn't really that keen on it. And he was like quite anxious about it. And I was like,
Hmm.
what's going on? Why are you so anxious about it? Most people are excited to be an adult. And he was like, thing is, Mum, when you're an autistic kid, you're really cute and people think you're kind of adorable. When you're an autistic adult, people think you're weird and like to avoid you. And I
Oh
was like,
man.
oh, I mean, you're not wrong, but my God. And like, that was a moment when I was like, oh God, that
Yeah.
kind of
It's-
stings a bit.
yes, that's your brutal honesty reality
Yeah,
check.
yeah,
But he wasn't doing
yeah.
it to hurt you, right? Because
No, not at
it
all.
wasn't about you. It was about, his reflections. But again, he's not really understanding of how that's perceived by you at that time, because you are the autistic
Yeah,
adult.
yeah, yeah. In brackets, you're really weird, by the way. Close brackets. But also, it was just, I don't think that he I don't think he's wrong, to be honest. Like, there is something about that. We infantilize autistic people, and we have lots of conversations about autistic kids, and we have very few conversations about autistic adults.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
because
Yeah, I mean,
we're less palatable. People don't really know what to do with us.
well, I think I hope that, that changes over time as people become kind of more aware of autism and how it presents, and more accepting of neurodivergence. Because I think it's definitely a conversation that's
Yeah.
happening more and more, um, and hopefully, you know, all of the amazing stuff that you're doing will help to kind of educate people a little bit.
Yeah, and I think
Um,
we've got a generation now. Our kids are probably, I mean, arguably the first generation of children and young people who are being diagnosed in childhood more broadly, or
yes,
identified in childhood more broadly.
yeah,
So we've got kids who are hitting adulthood who know what it means to be neurodivergent before they're in their 40s. And there's definite value in that,
and they
you
can
know?
advocate for themselves as well. They can say, actually, you know,
Yeah.
this is what I need,
Yeah. Yeah,
and also
100%.
they can regulate themselves because they're aware of it, and
Mhm.
they have those accommodations hopefully at school.
Yeah.
um yeah, and
Yeah.
because that is on my mind in terms of thinking about how it's, yeah, how that plays out, how my kids will grow up to be neurodivergent adults, and what they'll be capable of and what they won't be, you know, won't find so easy to navigate. But I think
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing to surround yourself with people who are going to be honest, and you know, if you can understand that where that honesty comes from, sometimes it's not out of a place of malice, but out of a place of neurodivergency. I think that's a really positive thing. And I was just thinking that I think it would be wonderful if all politicians were autistic. You imagine a world where you could only be a politician if you were diagnosed autistic. So you're basically going to be honest. I would much
We'd get
rather.
so much stuff done as well, right?
I mean,
Like
it would be,
decisions would be made, things would
exactly.
happen.
We, I'd much
Yeah.
rather hear from a politician who's just like, I'll be honest, we're exaggerating the economic impact of immigrants because it wins votes. I'll be honest. It
Yeah.
looks much better to blame other people than own up to our own reckless spending and financial mismanagement. Vote
Yes.
Tory.
Yeah. Let's be honest, we're throwing trans people under the bus in the hope that you don't notice that we're shafting everybody who is not earning 100 grand a year.
Yeah, it's like, well, I don't necessarily agree with
Yeah.
your policies, but I admire your honesty.
Yeah. When I watch like PMQs and stuff, it's actually hilarious how so few questions get answered.
That's where you
You
need
know,
the
like,
autistic bullshit monitor. You, you want
yeah.
an autistic moderator going, no, no, you're lying. You didn't answer the
Answer the
question.
question. I
Yes.
discovered that in meetings with professionals, they don't really like it if you just keep repeating, answer the question, answer the question, answer the question. I got told off in a meeting
Did you?
for just saying to a head teacher over and over again, answer the question. You haven't answered the question, answer the question. I was accused by the chair of berating
But
him. I just want him to answer the question. It's really simple. Answer the question. But I also find there's power for me as an autistic adult advocating for not neurodivergent families. There is like we don't have very many advantages, I think, but so I will play the card when I need to.
yeah, yeah.
Um and if I go into meetings and say, just to make you aware, I am autistic, I do get dysregulated quite easily. I might appear to be angry. Don't look at how I'm saying it, listen to what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
Let's get
That's
on with it.
great. That's
And it gives me
amazing.
permission to just be
Seconds
as
out.
unmasked as I need to be. Yeah, come on, bring it on. Like, I'm not going to pretend to be polite. We're here
Oh,
to get
that's
work done.
I love that. That is great. I was once in a meeting with Tam, and this is something that I'm going to cover in another episode actually. With the LA, and see, Tam is neurodivergent as well, and they started the
Mhm.
meeting basically going, okay, just to be clear, we're not going to put him into mainstream. And it was like, oh, wow, you just dropped that straight on the table. Like, here is our starting point. I was like, oh, I would never have been able to do that. I'd sort of had to sort of tiptoe up to it and maybe suggest it. And Tam was just like, this is where we are, deal with it.
Yeah.
uh, and I
Yeah.
love that. It was
Yeah.
inspirational.
Like it saves everyone a lot of time and energy and effort to just be like, I'm astounded by the number of meetings that you have when at the beginning of the meeting you say, "So, what are we hoping to achieve from this meeting?" And everyone just looks at each other. You're like, "Okay, well, let me tell you what I've come for
Yeah, exactly.
because I know. So, if you don't know, I'm just going to get what I want
Yeah, wicked.
for this kid who you're failing." There was one thing that I wanted to share with you, which I
Yeah,
thought
yeah,
was
yeah.
so funny, and like decide if you think it's appropriate. So Theo, for a long time, didn't really have a peer group,
Mhm.
and he had a period of time when he wasn't in school, and he was lonely. And I remember him saying to me, "I just want one friend, Mum. I'm not greedy. One friend will do." And it broke my heart.
I know, it was heartbreaking.
Anyway, he's now at college and he has got this little collection of friends,
Oh, great.
and they're like all neurodivergent as heck. And like they're freaking brilliant and they have the best time and
Great.
they really look after each other and they all know they're neurodivergent. But he was saying to me, one of his friends has been struggling with something. And he said to me, like, for example, a lie of convenience. With my friend, I won't name him because I don't have his permission, but with my friend, um, I can, when he's struggling, I can say to him, "Oh, I'm really sorry, that's hard. Would you like a hug? Please say no." And it makes him laugh, and then we move on.
Oh, brilliant.
You know,
That is so
like,
brilliant.
which I freaking love because I can
Yeah.
imagine this kid like breaking his heart over something, and Theo being like, "Oh, I don't really know what to do. Would you like a hug? Please say no." And then them all pissing themselves laughing. You know, I love that. I love it.
Yeah, that is wonderful. So I think we've fully explored the world of honesty in
Yeah.
neurodivergent kids. So we'll get on to the next section.
It's not all rubbish.
The next section is the "It's Not All Rubbish" section, which is going to be where we look at the positive aspects of our neurodivergent kids. Of which there are many, and we've talked about a lot of positives already. So I think their
Yeah.
honesty is a positive in itself, but there's even more. So one of the things I wanted to discuss is neurodiversity champions, which I'm a big
Yes.
favourite of. Is talking about any people or institutions or experiences you've had where your neurodiversity has been completely accommodated. Have you got any
Mhm.
neurodiversity champions you want to talk about?
I mean, there are so many, but one of the organizations that I really love, like making sure people know exist, is an organization called Mind Jam. So
Hmm.
Mind Jam are a independent provision, and they work. A lot of the work they do is supporting children and young people who have barriers to attendance, so who are either out of school or even are home eded. Practically all of the kids that they work with are neurodivergent, and they do it through online gaming.
Okay.
So they have like a team, a rapidly expanding team of mentors who work one to one with kids online, gaming in like a mentorship relationship. So they offer emotional and special educational needs support for children and young people through the things that is their ways to connect. So
Wow.
they don't force like kind of neurotypical expectations of what is acceptable. They
Yes.
don't do that thing of, oh, well, if they're not doing what you want them to do, to turn their screens off, take their
Hmm.
devices off them. They go, okay, cool. We know that neurodivergent kids, when they're in crisis, or even when they're just in, searching for joy, a lot of the places that they'll find that will be on online gaming. So they make safe places for them to build relationships with adults who they can trust to bridge that gap, which I think is freaking glorious. They do amazing work. So they're called Mind Jam, and they work nationally. Yeah, and Dan, who runs them, is amazing. Yeah, and they also they have online mentoring, but they also do have counselors on their team as well, so that when a child or young person has built a relationship of trust, you can then have them have some mental health support as well. But they work predominantly with PDA, autistic, ADHD, kids with trauma profiles. And the work they do is transformative. And it's all like the kid turns up and they're like, right, so do you want to do Fortnite, Minecraft, or Roblox or something else? Um, yeah, and I've seen amazing things happen through them. So they're
That
worth
sounds
shouting about.
fantastic. Okay, yeah, I will definitely check those out. Thank you. I also, it's worth mentioning EOTS Matters as well. um,
Oh yeah,
neurodiversity
thanks.
champions.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're quite cool.
definitely. So yeah. So actually, yeah. Just tell us a little bit about EOTAS Matters, which is your own organization.
Yeah, organisation sounds so grand, doesn't it? It's
Sorry,
me and a
disorganization. Is that
handful of
more?
support staff. Disorganisation, car crash. That is a limited company. Um, so yeah, our work, my work, the work of me and the people who I work with, is to support parents and carers of neurodivergent learners who maybe have barriers to attendance. So it started off with helping people get EOTAS packages, but it's really grown.
Hmm.
So what we do now is that we help parents and carers of neurodivergent kids to understand like low arousal approaches, trauma informed practices, low demand parenting, uh, advocating for their kids, their rights, their, what they can ask for, the EHCP process. And we also run, once a year, we run a program called NeuroCurious, which is for adults of parents and carers of neurodivergent kids who themselves think, oh my God, maybe I'm neurodivergent.
Okay.
And we do a 12-week program where we're like, oh, come on in. Yes, let's show you just how autistic you really are.
Yes.
And it's something I'm really proud of. So yeah,
Yeah.
so
Wow.
we have an online membership for parents and carers called the Marble Run, where we have regular guests, Q&As, a bank of resources and trainings on everything to do with neurodivergence, EHCPs, SEND provision, education, low demand parenting, trauma informed approaches. Um, yeah, and I'm really proud of it. We've
Yeah,
worked
as
really
you
hard and
should
we've
be.
got
It's
incredible
fantastic.
people
I was
working with us.
having a rummage around your website and it's just packed with loads of amazing stuff. So if any of our listeners want to check that out, it is www.heidimavir.com, isn't it?
Yeah. Or if you just search Heidi EOTAS, you'll find me.
I will put the link in the show notes so that everyone can access that as well. I've got a neurodiversity champion
Thank
that
you.
sort of touches on what I mentioned earlier when we went to see the Totoro at the Barbican, because that was an amazing experience, and I just wanted to kind of give a shout out to the Barbican for that. It's not on at the moment, but they had a relaxed event, and it was a Saturday matinee, and it was sort of lights were up and the noise was down a bit, and it was so nice to just be in a theatre space where my child could fidget and make noise
Yeah.
and talk and not be shushed or all kind of judged. It was
Yeah.
really lovely to be able to have that experience. What was also amazing was that it was assigned, they had a sign language interpreter on the stage, and normally if you
Hmm.
see that kind of thing, they're sort of stuck at the side, just signing at the side
Were
as a
they like
slate. They
integrated
were
signers?
integrated. It was
Yeah, I
amazing.
love that. I
Like
love that.
it was so good because the kids were sort of interacting with them like that she was some kind of housemaid or something. So she was in
Like an
like
extra
they were,
character.
yeah, and they were having little signed conversations with them separately, and it was like it was wonderful. And I found out that that was the only performance they were doing, and it was so integrated into the whole thing that it felt so natural. It's
Mm.
like this was just great. So, I mean, yeah, it wasn't about neurodiversity, but it was so wonderfully done. So shout out to uh, the Totoro live show and for the Barbican for everything they did there, because that was fantastic.
Tiny epic wins.
Okay, so we're going to do some tiny epic wins now. So tiny in the neurotypical world, but epic in our world. So have you got any tiny epic wins for us, Heidi?
I mean, we have so many. Um, like I was listening to some of your other episodes, and what other people have said is that, when you're a parent in a neurodivergent household, how you measure wins are so different to everybody
Yes,
else,
yes.
especially if your child or young person has been in crisis.
Uh-huh.
So, Theo was very, very poorly for about 2 years, um, really unwell, frighteningly so.
Hmm.
So the things that are happening now for him feel like massive massive steps forward rather. So I was thinking about this, and there are lots of little things, but this feels like quite a big thing, but it's like extra big. Um, so he has never been able to manage public transport. Like, if you ask him about buses, he'll tell you about when he was on a bus once when he was 9 years old and there was a chicken drumstick down the side of the seat, and now he can't get on a bus because of that.
Okay.
Right. Which, like, yeah, okay, cool. Buses are chicken drumstick nightmares. So, yeah. But anyway, so it's something we've been working on with him.
Hmm.
because he wants to be able to do that. So his occupational therapist and his support mentor have been working a lot. And it's been about him building his confidence around not just being expected to get on the bus, but having the confidence to book a ticket and to know where he wants to go and to have a reason for going there rather than
Yeah.
just getting on a bus because someone says you need to be able to get on a bus, you
Yeah,
know.
of course. Hmm.
Um, over the summer holidays, he and his friends, um, he went on the train to Leeds from Wakefield, where we live,
Yeah.
which is like a 10-minute train ride. And then he got off the train, walked to the bus station, met his friends at the bus station, bought them all tickets, and they all got the bus to York,
Amazing.
which is freaking
He
massive.
bought
You
them
know,
all tickets as
absolutely
well. He's
massive.
like, I've got this.
He planned the journey. He was like, I don't know if he paid for them. He probably did. We have to do some work on money management. He's like, oh,
Okay.
money, Lego, amazing.
One step at a time, though, Heidi.
Yeah, it's a work in process.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's now talking about that maybe I could get the bus to college because I've been driving
Oh,
him to
wow.
college for 18 months. And he is talking about, well, no, he is committed to going away to university in September, which is
Unbelievable.
messing with me big time
Yeah.
and wants to live in. But he was saying that his friend, he says, oh, it's my friend's birthday in January. And I'm gonna go to Sheffield on the train. We're gonna get a hotel, and Mum, I'm gonna get drunk. I'm like, okay. It's like, yeah, I think before I go to university, I should find out what kind of a drunk I am because
Uh,
you're a mean drunk and my dad's a funny drunk, and I kind of want to know which one I am. So I've just got this. I'm like, the only thing he'll drink is Malibu and pineapple. So I have this vision of him like going to Sheffield and being in a hotel room with his mates, just getting absolutely wasted.
the
But
pina
honestly, I'm here
colada.
for it. I'm like, you're 19. It's time. It's
It's
time,
time.
son. I'm really proud of you for planning in your drunkenness, you know, with people who are going to be safe around you to work out whether that's something you want to pursue further. So yeah, that's a mini win for me. My kid wants to go and get shit faced in Sheffield.
I
It's
want to
progress.
revisit that in the future. We'll see how that went.
I'll keep you posted. I mean, it could
Good.
be all kinds
Thank
of
you.
messy, but
That's
yeah.
the point, though, right? If it's not messy, you haven't done it right.
No. And like there's a blessing in the fact that he's 19 and he's never been drunk yet. I mean,
Yes.
God, I was passed out in hedges when I was 12, so he's winning at life.
I mean, I do worry. I mean, Jay is going to probably want to drink at some point, and the thing about alcohol is that it makes you lose your inhibitions. He doesn't have any inhibitions. What the fuck is going to happen? It's going to be
Well,
carnage.
if I'm anything to go by, I can give you some horror stories, but it probably wouldn't make you feel better about it.
No, let's not let's not go there
No.
yet. Um, my tiny epic win is we've discovered bamboo socks. Do you know about these?
Oh.
So,
Are they soft and no seams?
they are soft and seamless. And
Yeah, they sound great.
I cannot believe it's taken me so long to be shown the light. Because all of my kids have massive issues wearing socks. And Jay's
Yeah.
issues wearing socks meant that there were certain shoes that he refused to wear. Because he wouldn't,
Mhm.
and I realized now that it was the socks that were the issue, not the shoes. Um, so he would
Mhm.
wear Crocs everywhere, and I had to find all kinds of varieties. You can't wear Crocs going to school, um, and I mean he can now. Just let him get on with it.
I
But
mean, you can, but
yeah, yeah,
who wants to have to fight for that reasonable adjustment,
no,
really, when we've
exactly.
got everything else going on?
Exactly. But then someone I saw on one of the groups on one of the Facebook groups, the mascot group, which is fantastic, and someone mentioned bamboo socks from Sock Shop, and I bought some to try them out because also India was refusing to wear socks as well. So I was like, well, I'll try these, and now they I don't even need to ask them to put their socks on; they just put them on. And they love it, and it's
Wow.
like that is a massive game changer. I mean, of the myriad battles I have to fight in the morning to get them to school, that has removed one skirmish. So I'll take it.
What the flip?
Okay, we're going to do the usually my favourite section, which is the what the flip section of the show, just because I get to get stuff off my chest that I've been sitting on for a while. Um, so, have you had any particular what the flip moments with Theo recently?
I mean, yes, so many. I was thinking about, so these are those moments where you're like, where did that come from and
Yes,
how,
and I don't know how
like,
to
yeah.
respond. Yeah.
Yeah. So there was one, like he says funny things all the time. Um, but it was one that gave me a real insight into how his brain works.
Mhm.
He recently has been able to do cooking, and he's basically taken over the cooking for the household. So he can cook and he can do a little bit of cleaning up as he goes, but he can't manage dirty dishes.
Okay.
And he can't manage like washing up or even touch dirty plates. And he said to me the other day, he was eating a packet of crisps and he'd finished the packet of crisps and he'd literally just put it down, just put it on the table. And I said, Theo, put your crisp packet in the bin. And he went, no, Mum, I can't touch it. It's rubbish. And I was like, I'm sorry, what now? Literally within seconds of him putting it down, it had
It's like,
transferred from being some kind of like
but it's your
magical
rubbish.
transformation
It's like
from
your
being a
rubbish.
receptacle whereby to eat crisps to being something so dirty he couldn't touch it because it was rubbish. And it gave me that moment of like, this is what the cooking thing is about. This
Yeah.
is what the washing up thing is about. When we go out to eat, after he has finished his meal,
Yeah.
he needs for us to move the plate away really quickly because a dirty plate makes him really anxious.
Oh, that's interesting.
But while he's eating off it, it's fine. And it gave me a real like, oh, okay, all right. So the crisp packet I was just like, and I had a moment when I was like, are you shitting me? Like, is this you just are you just being really lazy?
Right,
But
but
I
he
looked at him
doesn't
and I
he
was like, he's
doesn't
not
lie, right?
lying.
We know he doesn't lie.
No.
We've established this.
I was like, he won't touch that now. It's rubbish.
Oh, that's so funny.
And then I was like, oh God, this is going to be
I get it.
fun when you're an
Yeah.
adult and living on your own. But yeah, that was my what the flip moment this week.
That's
What about
wonderful.
you?
I've got a few. Well, one of Jay's phrases to describe Otto, who'd hurt himself again. Otto can hurt himself in an empty room. It happens very often, and he'd hurt his knee. And Jay just kind of looked at him witheringly, and then turned to me and went, "His knees are weaker than French toast." It's like, where is that from? I don't know.
Oh, I freaking love that.
I don't know where he
That's
gets it from.
amazing.
Um,
I love that.
and then
I
one of
love
the
that.
one of the other ones, again, his phrasing is just wonderful. When he was like, "Why are you on your phone?" And I was responding to an email for him actually. So anyway, yeah, there was a family support call.
Yeah, he doesn't care. He wants to
Yeah,
know
no,
why
he
he's not
doesn't
giving him
care
his full and
exactly.
undivided attention.
So I was
Yeah.
like, "Look, Jay, our phones, we don't just use our phones for phone calls. You know, they're used for other things as well, like like emails, and we use it for maps to find out where we're going." And he went, "Oh, pish posh, the Romans got around without phones." It's like, pish posh.
Pish posh.
I've never heard of that in my life, but I know what it means.
That is amazing. That is amazing. This is a historical one, but when he said it to me, we were sat, and he would have been about 8 or 9.
Yeah.
We were sat in watching TV, and we weren't watching anything that would have triggered this at all. But he just turned to me in the middle of whatever it was we were watching. I went, I have a question for you. And I was like, okay. And he went, we've got a cat.
Okay.
If we were going to get the cat tattooed, what kind of tattoo would we get? And then I think a whale. And then just looked at me. And I was just like,
There's so much there. There's so much. Like,
I don't know, Theo. Like,
I'm now just.
and he was like, I'll let you think about it.
Yeah, please do. I'm going to need a couple of weeks because there's a lot going on there. Okay. Now, before we kind of close the show, I always like to ask my guests to talk about the best things about their kids. So, what's your favourite thing
God.
about Theo?
I mean, he forever cracks me up with,
Mhm.
and he now is of that age where he is intentionally and confidently funny.
Mhm.
For a long while, I was like, does he know how funny he is? Like, am I laughing at him or
Yeah,
with him?
yeah.
But he, one of the things I love most about him is that he is super kind. So like, and he's like my little, like, I joke all the time that he's the responsible adult in our house. You know, like, he's the person who's mostly holding it all together.
He's
So
doing the
this
cooking
is
as well
what,
now.
Yeah, this is a WhatsApp message from him yesterday. Um, Please can you put the hot water on? I'd like a bath. Also, eat some food. There's wraps in the fridge. Also, have a drink and don't forget to take your meds. Love you. That's
Oh,
from him at like 9:30 yesterday morning in a break between his lessons in college.
you've reached the tipping point, Heidi. He's parenting you now.
When he goes to university, I'm going to be absolutely stuffed. Absolutely stuffed. So yeah, I love that he's hilarious and he really takes care of me. Like,
Yeah, that's
that's a
really
win,
lovely.
right?
Yeah, that's a massive win. Yeah. So that is it for another episode of Neuro Shambles. Before you go, I would like to just divert your attention to the socials. We're on Facebook and Instagram, Reddit, and Threads. Still not X. That's not going to change. Um, and obviously, if you like what you hear, please follow us on all the socials. And word of mouth is probably the thing I would urge you to do. If you think someone else can benefit from this, then tell them about it and spread the word. That'd be great. It'd be good to push us up to past the 124th best parenting podcast in Hungary. I'm going. I'm going for. I want to break the top 100 at some point. So particularly for our Hungarian listeners, pull your finger out. But other than that, I just want to say massive thank you to Heidi for coming and joining us and sharing your neuroshambolic household with us.
Thanks for having me. It was fun. It was fun.
Good, good. And check out Heidi's website. Everything's going to be in the show notes. Everything we talked about, Yotus Matters and Your Child Is Not Broken, which is a brilliant book. And all that remains for me to say is thank you so much for listening and have a nice life.